r/ask Reddit. People who grew up with strict parents. What was their most unreasonable rule? Have a friend who isn't allowed to go out if he's already had too much fun this weekend. That's the only reason. They think he'll become corrupted if he has too much fun and that he won't know how to work. He's in college. How was your weekend? Oh, really boring. Didn't have any fun. Victory. This actually hits home for me a bit. I was raised that way and now in my adult life I find myself not having fun almost on purpose. I was not allowed to talk to boys. One Christmas Eve day, I was doing last minute shopping in the downtown of our little town. I ran into two male friends from my German class and we talked for several minutes and wished each other a Merry Christmas. Oh, I was 15 at the time. My older sister drove by and saw me. Told my parents I was hanging out with boys. When I walked in the house both my parents were waiting and the yelling began. Some Christmas Eve. Parents who do the whole no boys thing are setting their daughters up to cling to the first guy to give them any attention. Even if it's not positive or healthy. Kids need to experiment and find out what works. Otherwise they wind up trapped by inexperience and in shitty relationships. I wasn't allowed to say I died on Mario. I lost one of my chances to succeed. I was hoping I'd see more of this on this thread and less instances of abuse. Son, your grandpa lost one of his chances to succeed. I had a ton. I think the most unreasonable was that we, my siblings and I, weren't allowed to know where we were going during car rides. If we'd ask we were told business, and figure it out we were going to the store, etc. Only after we arrived at our destination. This lasted until I moved out. Another was asking for permission to use a bathroom every time. This didn't last as long. No trends or passing fads. Pokemon banned. Barbies banned. Beanie Babies banned. PlayStation Gamma Boys banned. Anything particularly fashionable or popular regardless of actual merit was met with derision and we'd be mocked for even suggesting interest. We were achingly frumpy kids with interests and cultural references, or lack thereof, that isolated us from our peers and they wondered why each of us were bullied. Pretty sure the verdict is in on Barbie and PlayStation. They aren't fads. Since OP was young enough that PlayStation Gamma Boys were coming out when OP was young, the verdict was in on Barbie decades before OP was born. I read blogs by women who grew up in strict fundy households. I'm fascinated by the way so many of them value pop culture trends as a way to connect with other people. Made me realize how much a lot of us take that for granted. For every minute I was late coming in from curfew, I got grounded a week. I once spent 10 weeks grounded due to a sobriety checkpoint. Whoa. For me it was every minute late is a minute earlier the next day. Mine is logical, yours is insane. Dad was a narcissist. Biggest rule in the house was not to make any noise around him. If he was home the whole house got quiet and tense. Even my mom used to eat her cereal in the bedroom because she'd get in trouble for chewing crunchy food. Now she's long rid of him and married to a way better guy, but she still apologizes for eating crackers. I wasn't allowed to shrug or say I don't know if anything tech related went wrong. It was assumed that I broke it on purpose, even if the only reason anyone knew it was broken is because I was trying to fix it. Birthday parties were a no-go. Christmas was a no-go. Any party whatsoever was a no-go. What if you didn't know something? How do you respond? Not me. I wasn't there. etc. Legit sounds awful. There were a lot, but the most ridiculous one to me was they didn't want me volunteering during high school. I was visiting the elderly and they said it was too dangerous to be around strangers like that and the time was taking away from my studies. Most extracurriculars I wanted to do they had a huge problem with, but it didn't hit me how absurd it was until it was about senior citizens. The ironic thing is those things look great on college applications. My mom was insanely controlling about food. Weird rules were in place like 1 slice of lunch meat per sandwich. No one but her was allowed to cook. She'd make one giant batch of spaghetti or something and we'd have leftovers for days. So she only had to make dinner twice a week. She did not work or anything. Just didn't like cooking every day. Breakfast was cold cereal and you'd only be allowed a small bowl with just enough milk to moisten it. Occasionally she'd bake something she called corn toasties, which was simply cornbread baked in a sheet pan. She'd cut them into squares and fill the freezer with them, and we could have one of those for breakfast as an alternative. Once when I was 14 I bought a pack of hot dogs at the store, snuck them home, and lit the grill. I was almost done cooking them when she came out screaming about fire hazards and swatted the plate out of my hand. She had been making spaghetti. What an ungrateful little bastard I was. So then she orders a pizza for the rest of my family, wraps individual servings of spaghetti in freezer paper, and puts them away. She tells me that I will be eating nothing else until it's all gone. Took about 2 months to choke it all down. Went without eating a lot of days. I was also grounded for over a year. But I sure learned a lot about consequences. Females of the family must cook and clean on holidays while males watch TV. Must bus males' plates every night. No visiting friends' houses, no friends over at our house all the way through high school. Hair cannot be cut at or above shoulder. 7 PM bedtime. Not curfew. Bedtime. Through junior high. Strictly enforced. Needless to say, I rebelled strong and hard. Upvote for the rebelling part. I'm so very sorry. No dating till marriage. My parents were pretty slack on everything except one thing. No video games console ever. And no online games on the computer, because that's how you get virus and make the computer run slow. So I was playing my Morpg when they were sleeping. In a hidden file. In a file. In another file. In another file, and I was changing the appearance of every file icon. And this is how you reverse your child's sleep schedule. And teach them to be sneaky. We could not listen to music with guitars in it. I will never forget the day my brother was listening to Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and my father took the radio and threw it through the window. Spent my childhood listening to Richard Marx and Michael Bolton. Thanks, Dad. My father was very strict. I wasn't allowed to have alone time with my mother. He beat the shit out of me constantly. But the oddest thing that still bugs me to this day is that he would burn all my things as punishment. And I get it. Seeing my toys and valuables burning sucked, and I probably learned some lessons. But he not only burned toys, he would burn everything. Every year or so for school we would go to Meijer and buy me new school clothes and shoes. He would also burn those, like sometimes days after he bought them. At 8 years old I remember thinking, you now have to buy me more clothes. But that wasn't the point, I suppose. He once took me to the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit to see the Globetrotters one year, and during the night he bought me a Globetrotters basketball and jersey. We had a fun night. The very next day, I had left something on the floor in my room, and his punishment, among other things, was to burn the basketball and jersey he bought for like $150 less than 24 hours earlier. It just never made sense to me. My friends would joke about it all throughout middle and high school. Sounds more like mental illness than strict parenting. You can't have privacy, literally quoted from my dad. My dad used to threaten me by saying he would take my room's door off if I kept closing it. I didn't know that was possible until he eventually did. I'd sit in my room naked and jack off all day until he gave it back. Oh god, I wasn't allowed to go out, like ever. If I was gonna hang out with someone it had to be on the weekend, planned at least a week ahead. And my parents had to meet their parents and drive me there. They would come get me before the sun went down. Not a rule. But if I got up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night or was reading because I couldn't sleep, my mom would come screaming up the stairs, "Why are you up?" and sometimes hit me. I wasn't allowed to close the door in my room. There's more, but that's what I can think of right now. Mostly my mother would just yell about everything. My parents actually removed the door from my room when I was like 16. I got it back when I started sleeping naked. 30 minutes of internet time a day, and 99% of the time that was supervised, as in mom looking over my shoulder and commenting on conversations. We had webv, RIP, and when they weren't home, they would literally lock the keyboard in a toolbox. My sis and I could never have friends stay over because the house is a mess. No amount of cleaning satisfied mom, because the real reason was she wanted to be able to fight with my dad at will. Oh god, same. Couldn't have friends over because the house is a mess. Those exact same words. I wonder whose fault that was? Then when I tried to clean it was that doesn't go there, or stop moving my stuff. My mom was very strict about the ratings of movies and video games. One year for Christmas a relative gave me a copy of Star Wars: Shadows of the Empire for the Nintendo 64. It was a T14 rated game and I wouldn't be turning 13 for another 4 weeks. My mom had my dad drive me to Toys R Us to return the game. We walked into the store and over to the games and he had me pick out an E for everyone rated game. We proceeded to check out and as we went to the car he handed me not only the new game but the game we were supposed to have returned to buy it as well and told me not to let her catch me playing it. That guy deserves a high five. I was not allowed to watch Pokemon because it taught evolution. Haha. My brother couldn't watch it because Pokemon equals pocket monsters, which is a sneaky word for demons. My mom wouldn't let me have any female friends growing up. Jokes on her, I'm gay. Hahaha, I'm a lesbian. I've been out and dating since I was like 13. But my mom spent most of my teen years in denial, so I wasn't allowed to spend time with boys alone or have them sleep over, but girls were fine. Indian parents. I could stay at a sleepover until 2 AM, but couldn't actually sleep at that person's house lol. I wasn't allowed to cross any streets until middle school, thus, my best friends were the ones who lived on the same block as me. I was not allowed to wear makeup or shave until 16. My mom was controlling about food. Everything was kept track of. I had to be in marching band in order to get my permit. I had a job. But even if I worked second shift, which I did, and came home at 11, I would have to clear the plates from the table for the dinner that they ate. If I asked to hang out with a friend in the presence of said friend, the answer was automatically no. I was only allowed to do things if the friend or their parent was paying for it. The straw that broke the camel's back, and ultimately made me move out at 16, was that I had to live like a boarder. Showers cost $5. A load of laundry was $1 for washer, $1 for dryer. Telephone time cost 25 cents per minute. My stepmom decided that I was using too much shampoo. She would get a little medicine cup before my shower and pour the designated amount into it. It wasn't ever enough because I had hair down to my butt. I also wasn't allowed to use conditioner. Screw her. If my father yelled up the stairs to me, I wasn't allowed to yell back what. Instead I would have to come down the stairs to see what he wanted, even if it was just to tell me something or ask a question. My parents did this. Yelling is rude, they said. I never could adequately explain the hypocrisy to them. Well, I pretty much couldn't do anything at all. I wasn't even allowed to put posters on my wall. I'm not sure whether it was to protect the wall or some other silly reason. All I wanted to put up was a cute poster of a cuddly seal, so I ended up sticking it behind my door. My dad once told me that he was going to ground me due to my poor performance in school, so I simply responded with, "Go ahead, ground me. It's not like I go anywhere anyway." His dead silence after that was an acknowledgement that he knew I had a point there. My radio was taken away during exams, because I had to concentrate. The radio helped me concentrate. Not my parents, but my high school friend had very strict parents. This was shortly after 9/11 and the anthrax scare. It was Halloween evening and a group of us were supposed to head out and light fireworks around the neighborhood. Well, my friend wasn't allowed to come out at night because his mom was worried about terrorists bombing our city with anthrax. We live in Canada. No TV or rock music. Both were of the devil. I did watch some TV when at a friend's house and I mostly listened to the music I liked, but I did miss out on some TV series that my friends talked about. I was from a large family and discipline was very strict. If myself or one of my siblings broke one of the major rules, my parents would hold a truth session. All the children would be brought to my dad's study where the guilty party would be given an opportunity to confess. If nobody came forward, we would be hit in turn in order of ascending age. The eldest four were hit with a sewer rod while, in deference to their age, the youngest ones would get a whack of a bamboo stick. A sewer rod is basically a 4-foot long flexible rubber rod, around an inch thick and with a metal cap. It would leave the most remarkable welts. Horrendous things really. Anyway, this would continue until someone admitted their guilt. At that point they would receive the blows that everyone else had received to that point. So that was awful. I fully acknowledge that. I'm under no illusions. However, that wasn't the actual unreasonableness. No, the unreasonable part was that the person who caused the truth session didn't always receive the accrued punishment owed for having their siblings beaten. Sometimes they could just be let go, making their siblings hate them for causing pain to them. But there'd be no explanation. The study door would be opened and we'd all be told to leave. That meant you could be rewarded for holding out and avoiding the punishment you'd definitely get if you admitted it at the beginning. My parents now tell fun stories about how when I was a child and I'd done something wrong, I'd always begin with, "Let me tell you my story." How they chortle at my childish phrasing while I recall the terror that such an approach was meant to stave off. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.